Welcome to Level 1 HIPAA training for management and staff. This program is only part of your HIPAA training. In addition to the HIPAA basics discussed in this course, you will also need to know your office's HIPAA policies and procedures. From time to time, your training should be updated, and you may also receive reminders. This course provides training on the application of the policies in the ADA Practical Guide to HIPAA Compliance Privacy and Security Kit. At the end of this course, you'll be able to accomplish the following objectives: use some basic HIPAA terminology, demonstrate HIPAA-compliant behavior when working with patients, colleagues, computers, technology, and records, recognize certain violations of HIPAA privacy and security compliance, follow appropriate steps when you suspect a HIPAA breach. HIPAA applies to all forms of health information, including electronic information, paper, photographs and radiographs, and spoken information. Here are some simplified definitions of common HIPAA terms to help you understand the training program. For more information about these definitions, please refer to the ADA Practical Guide to HIPAA Compliance. We'll walk through each of these terms next. Dental practices are covered entities if they transmit health information electronically in connection with a transaction covered by HIPAA. HIPAA covers transactions such as submitting a claim to a dental plan and checking to see if a patient is enrolled in a plan. Health plans and healthcare clearinghouses are also HIPAA-covered entities. Protected Health Information, or PHI, is information about an individual's medical or dental condition, treatment, or payment for healthcare, including genetic information. PHI can be in any form, including electronic, paper, and spoken. PHI includes 18 specific identifiers, as well as demographic information about the individual. Treat health information as PHI if it either identifies an individual or can be used to identify an individual. Disclosure occurs when protected health information is divulged in any way, when someone releases it, transfers it, provides it to someone, or when someone provides access to it outside the dental practice. A person uses protected health information if he or she shares, employs, applies, utilizes, examines, or analyzes the information within the dental practice. The Notice of Privacy Practices is a document that tells individuals about some of the rights that HIPAA gives them and how their protected health information may be used and disclosed by the dental practice. Each covered entity's Notice of Privacy Practices must contain certain required provisions. See your office's notice for more information. A breach may occur when protected health information is acquired, accessed, used, or disclosed in any way that HIPAA does not permit. Most business associates are contractors, vendors, or professionals whose work on behalf of the dental office involves access to protected health information. Here are some examples: a billing firm that processes claims, an auditor who looks at patient accounts, and a recycling firm that shreds old documents. As covered entities, dentists have a legal duty to protect PHI as required by HIPAA. HIPAA violations can result in negative publicity, which can be harmful to a dental practice's continued viability. In addition, the government can impose civil or criminal penalties on violators. HIPAA violations can result in large civil fines and ongoing compliance costs that can amount to thousands or even millions of dollars per year. HIPAA violations involving criminal penalties for wrongfully using, obtaining, or disclosing PHI for commercial gain can include large fines and even prison terms. Dentists have an ethical duty to protect patient confidentiality. It is the right thing to do, and it is part of good patient care. Safeguarding protected health information helps protect your patients and the dental practice. The privacy rule addresses how you must use, disclose, and protect PHI in any form. It also gives patients certain rights. The privacy rule requires covered entities to put safeguards in place to protect PHI. For example, office rules about computer passwords, door locks, and handling paper records can all be used to protect PHI. The HIPAA privacy rule also limits uses and disclosures of PHI and gives patients certain rights over their own PHI. Let's learn more about each of these. The privacy rule requires safeguards to PHI. Learn your office's policies and procedures for safeguarding PHI. These might include door locks, cabinet locks, and procedures for handling charts, policies about who is permitted access to PHI, and how to communicate with patients and their family members. The privacy rule also limits how a covered entity may use and disclose PHI without an individual's authorization. The HIPAA privacy rule also gives patients rights over their PHI, such as the right to learn how their PHI is used and disclosed, to inspect and obtain copies of their PHI, to request amendments to PHI, to request an accounting of disclosures of PHI, to ask to receive communications in a different way or at a different location, or to request that their PHI not be disclosed. HIPAA requires that you make sure all requests, questions, and complaints go to the person in the dental office who is trained and authorized to handle them. The HIPAA security rule requires safeguards to protect electronic health information. Electronic information can include these items. Learn how your office safeguards electronic health information and follow those procedures. Here are some examples. The breach notification rule requires notification if protected health information is improperly acquired, accessed, used, or disclosed. If you suspect a breach, report it immediately to the person in your office who is responsible for assessing breaches. HIPAA requires a practice to designate a privacy official, a security official, and a contact person. They may be the same person or they may be different people. Here are their responsibilities. If anyone has a question or request regarding HIPAA or PHI, promptly refer them to the appropriate staff members, such as the privacy official. Some examples are listed here. Remember, do not attempt to respond to a request from an individual regarding HIPAA or protected health information unless you are trained and authorized to do so. Your dental practice policies and procedures may require you to report certain situations immediately to the security or privacy official. For example, you may be required to report if you suspect that someone's health information has been breached. A security incident such as hacking, a virus, or malware, or a HIPAA violation by a contractor or vendor. Examples of suspected security incidents are major storm and systems outages, hacking or an unauthorized person in the office after hours, information moved onto a flash drive and lost or left in an unsecure location, or dental staff using the office manager's login and password. What should you do? Tell the security official immediately if you suspect a security incident. For example, if you can't access ePHI that you need, if ePHI seems to have been changed or corrupted, or if it seems ePHI has not been kept confidential, the Notice of Privacy Practices is prepared by the dental office to tell patients how their health information may be used and disclosed, and some rights that individuals have concerning health information. Remember to read, understand, and follow your dental practice's notice and to direct all questions about the notice to the appropriate person. Your dental office must document that each patient has received your Notice of Privacy Practices. In most cases, this documentation is the acknowledgement that the patient signs when he or she first receives the notice. If a patient prefers not to sign the acknowledgement, follow your practice's procedures for documenting your good faith effort to obtain the patient's signature. In general, your dental office will handle all PHI the same way, whether the patient agrees to sign the acknowledgement or not. Your office should understand and follow state law requirements. Each dental practice covered by HIPAA must have its own customized HIPAA policies and procedures that are specific to that dental office. The policies and procedures should be developed by the privacy and security officials and reviewed by your attorney. Privacy policies and procedures provide detail as to how PHI may be used and disclosed in compliance with HIPAA. They apply to all forms of PHI, including electronic, photographs, and radiographs, paper, and the spoken word, such as talking with people outside the office. Here are some basic privacy rule guidelines for protecting patient privacy. Do not disclose PHI to unauthorized individuals. Do not access PHI unless you are authorized to do so. And also recognize when PHI may be disclosed without an individual's authorization. Be careful when discussing PHI. Discuss PHI only in non-public areas. Use low voices and be aware of unauthorized listeners. Recognize when you are permitted to discuss a patient's information. Special rules apply to certain kinds of disclosures. Ask your privacy official before making non-routine disclosures. For example, these would be disclosures to a law enforcement official, for public health reporting, to a patient's relatives, household members, or friends, for research, or to a court or tribunal. Hipaa requires that covered entities limit the amount of PHI used or disclosed to the minimum necessary to accomplish the purpose for which it is used, accessed, disclosed, or requested. Follow your dental office minimum necessary rules in routine and non-routine situations. For example, sometimes it is appropriate to share a patient's entire record, and sometimes only a part of the record may be disclosed. There are exceptions to the minimum necessary rule, such as disclosures for treatment purposes, disclosures to patients, and disclosures required by law. Here are some other topics commonly addressed in dental office privacy policies and procedures. Communicating with patients appropriately, including appointment reminder cards and voicemail messages. Storing PHI and disposing of PHI properly. What should you do? Learn and follow your practice's specific privacy policies and procedures. Ask your privacy official if you have questions. Remember the minimum necessary rule and refer complaints and requests to the appropriate person. Your security official will develop policies and procedures to safeguard electronic PHI. Risk can arise due to inappropriate use of the Internet, misdirected email, loss of a laptop or removable media, such as a flash drive or CD, viruses and malicious software, and poorly maintained obsolete computer hardware or software. Dental office security policies and procedures may include backing up data, computer use and protection, restricting access to ePHI, correct use of usernames and passwords, appropriate use of removable media such as CDs and flash drives, disposing of electronic data and hardware, encryption and contingency plans for disasters and emergencies. You need to follow your practice's specific policies and procedures for ePHI and ask your security official if you have questions. A suspected breach occurs when there may have been an unauthorized access, acquisition, use, or disclosure of PHI. Immediately report any suspected breach. Your dental practice should designate someone to investigate and assess suspected breaches. This person may also determine whether a breach occurred and whether notification is required. Examples of possible breaches include loss or theft of a laptop or other device that contains unencrypted PHI, mailing PHI to the wrong patient, leaving a patient file open when another patient can see it, leaving a voicemail with PHI that others can listen to, and sharing patient information with someone who is not authorized to receive it. What do you need to do? Take steps to prevent breaches. Be alert for suspected breaches and report any suspected breach immediately to the appropriate person. You must be trained on Hipaa security, privacy, and breach notification policies and procedures so you can carry out your job functions. Training can take many forms. Here is a list of some. Training can also be formal, such as this course, or informal, coaching, for example. Training can be general or specific, but both are necessary to understand and achieve Hipaa compliance. Here are some examples. Ongoing training and documentation are essential to staying Hipaa compliant. All training should be documented. Hipaa requires sanctions against staff who violate Hipaa or who do not follow your dental office's Hipaa policies and procedures. Examples include retraining, disciplinary action, or termination. All sanctions must be documented. Your office must have a process for individuals to make complaints about your use and disclosure of PHI and breach notification. If you or anyone else has a complaint, direct it to the appropriate person. All complaints must be documented. Your office must have a process for individuals to make complaints about Hipaa compliance. When someone in good faith acts within their rights under Hipaa, for example, by participating in an investigation or filing a complaint, no retaliatory action may be taken against them. What do you do about Hipaa documentation? Your job may require you to complete or collect certain Hipaa logs and forms. For example, you may be responsible for asking patients to sign the acknowledgement that they received the notice of privacy practices or logging certain information. Remember, when retaining a Hipaa document, keep it for at least 6 years from the date the document was created, or 6 years from the date on which it is no longer in effect, whichever is later. Everyone in the dental office should know about Hipaa documentation retention requirements. Why? Something as simple as cleaning a file drawer can compromise a dental practice's Hipaa compliance if documents are discarded too soon. Remember, we are all responsible for Hipaa compliance. Here are some frequently asked questions about Hipaa. Let's ask the expert. Click on each question for the answer. Yes, unless a patient asks you not to use postcard appointment reminders. You are required to accommodate reasonable requests for communication by alternative means or at alternative locations. Adhere to the minimum necessary standards. Do not include any information about specific medications, conditions, procedures, treatment plans, treatment history, or health history. If you need to remind patients to pre-medicate, use generic instructions. Because of the breach notification rule, the ADA strongly recommends that you do not use email to exchange any electronic protected health information unless that ePHI is encrypted in a manner that renders it secure under the breach notification rule. Here are more frequently asked questions. What does our expert say? Click on each question for the answer. Hipaa does not require an authorization for healthcare providers to exchange information in support of treatment activities. But the caution I note here is to check with your state association or with your attorney for state law requirements. Custody arrangements may not prevent you from speaking with the non-custodial parent about their child. You cannot know without asking the parents. Try to determine the nature of any limitations on disclosures between parents as tactfully as possible and as soon as possible. You are required to provide the notice of privacy practices on or before the first date of service and ask the recipient to sign the acknowledgement. Here are some situations. Can you recognize which behavior can lead to a Hipaa breach? Click on each situation for the answer. Here are some basic Hipaa tips to review. Learn to identify PHI and how to properly access, use, or disclose it. Learn and follow your office's written Hipaa policies and procedures. Learn to recognize suspected security incidents and breaches. And protect paper, electronic, and spoken PHI from unauthorized people. For example, keep schedules, patient lists, charts, and statements where passers-by cannot view them. Follow procedures for locking or logging off the computer when you are away or it is not in use. Keep voices low and be aware of who is close to you when speaking. Congratulations, you've almost completed this course. The last step is to review.